This week, the Xbox reset seems to have happened, leaving Double Fine, Compulsion Games, Ninja Theory, and other unnamed studios in limbo. Here's everything we know to be confirmed so far about Xbox's reset. Last week, Bloomberg's Jason Schreier had reported that Xbox's new CEO, Asha Sharma, had sent out an email to employees that the company had dropped to a 3% accountability margin, or profit margin. In that email, Sharma had stated, excluding Activision Blizzard King, over the past 5 years, we have spent over $20 billion on ongoing investments in our content, platform, and hardware subsidy. But our annual revenue has declined nearly $500 million during that time. Going forward, this cannot continue. Sharma also spoke on the hardware difficulties with Xbox having to pay 5 times as much for storage and memory parts for their next-gen console codenamed Helix. Xbox is unable to make as many consoles as players want to buy, but Sharma is committed to Helix and is strategizing for a new business model to push hardware. In that same email, Sharma also said, "For some of you, these realities will be surprising and even frustrating to discover. We won't succeed by hiding hard truths, nor will we succeed by doing the same thing and expecting different results." Now, Sharma never specifically mentioned layoffs in that particular email, but at this point in the industry, I don't think that really needs to be said after an update like that. She did, however, point out that Xbox chose to expand their studios list when the company needed more content to push its streaming and subscription strategies. Sharma admitted that Xbox had not properly funded these industry-defining franchises to compete and win, and that they need to reassess the balance between first and third-party exclusives and new IP and their investment priorities for the next 5 years. On June 15, 2026, the head of Xbox Game Studios, Craig Duncan, announced his departure from the company after replacing former studios boss Alan Hartman in November 2024. Duncan oversaw Halo Studios, The Coalition, Flight Sim, Turn 10, Playground Games, Rare, Obsidian, Ninja Theory, Compulsion Games, The Initiative, Double Fine, In Exile, Undead Labs, World's Edge, and XGS Publishing. All of these studios will now report to Xbox Chief Content Officer Matt Booty until a replacement is secured. Duncan isn't the only one leaving Xbox, as the game studio's Chief of Staff, Louise O'Connor, also parted ways with the company. Now this brings us to this week's news. Compulsion Games, Double Fine, and Ninja Theory are in active conversations with Xbox to break off on their own to avoid studio closures. According to Bloomberg, the studios may still have a chance to buy themselves back from Xbox to go independent at the cost of reducing headcount to stay afloat. The article also stated that employees at several studios have been given permission to look for new work. These other studios concerned about the Xbox Studios closures were not named by any sources. A separate report from The Verge, however, claimed that staff at Ninja Theory were told about the possible closure on Monday, June 15th. This news came to the studio after the Xbox Game Showcase on June 7th, where Ninja Theory revealed a third Hellblade title was in development. Simply called Senua, the game was announced with a trailer that showcased a more action-adventure game unlike the previous 2 Hellblade games. Dom Matthews, the studio head of Ninja Theory, had stated to Xbox Wire that this is an out-and-out action-adventure game. Really, what that means is taking the heart and soul of what Hellblade has meant in terms of intimate storytelling, high production values, and being a journey that's full of intent, but being additive to that in a way that gives players more agency and a lot more gameplay. Senua is set to release sometime next year on Xbox Series X and S, PC, PS5, and Day 1 on Game Pass. With the latest development with the potential studio closures, Senua's fate has not been mentioned. There have not been any confirmations to any of these studios closing or gaining independence yet, as this is an ongoing situation and most likely won't face a conclusion for a week or longer. Let's look at when these 3 studios were acquired by Xbox. Microsoft announced that it had entered an agreement with Ninja Theory to become part of Microsoft Studios at E3 2018. Ninja Theory's studio creative director and founder Tamim Antonitis had explained the decision to join Xbox as a first-party studio because the studio had become too big to be indie, but too small to be truly AAA. With the acquisition by Microsoft, this would allow Ninja Theory to continue creating unique experiences in gaming and not worry about funding capping their creativity. The studio decided to join Microsoft for stability. That same E3, Microsoft also announced that it had acquired Compulsion Games. At the time, Microsoft Studios, now rebranded as Xbox Studios, had wanted to pursue new experiences for players, and Compulsion Games had been delivering just that. In a message to players about the acquisition, the studio's founder, Guillaume Provost, stated his excitement in joining Microsoft, since the developer would gain more resources and freedom to keep generating creative games and worlds. Provost said, "Most importantly, we're eager to prove that there truly is a place for a small studio and a different flavor of creativity in the big world of Xbox." At the Xbox E3 2019 briefing, Matt Booty announced the acquisition of Double Fine. Tim Schafer, founder of Double Fine, stated in a follow-up video the reasons why the developer joined Xbox Game Studios. He explained that Double Fine would be able to continue making their unique game experiences without having to pitch to multiple publishers to make projects happen.
Being independent for almost 20 years has given Double Fine a distinct identity and unique spirit that goes really deep here, and no one can change that. And nobody wants to. Microsoft wants us for who we are and the kind of games we're already making.
Xbox had acquired these 3 studios specifically for their unique artistic directions. Branching out the Xbox catalog to include the developers' creative projects was also a strategic move to diversify their new Game Pass catalog. Xbox Game Pass was announced and released back in February 2017 to the Xbox Insider community. Later that year, the subscription pass was open to the general public. In 2018, it was announced that Xbox Game Pass would include all new Xbox One exclusive games on the same date as their global release. According to Statista, the shift from consumers for Xbox gaming software sales turned to mostly online purchases in 2019. Since 2012, the trend had been shifting gradually down from retail to online, and since 2022, the majority was in online software sales, such as digital downloads, Xbox Game Pass, and other subscriptions and microtransactions. And it has stayed consistently so even now. Now, Game Pass has been a success, even though it had a very shaky few years. Last year, Microsoft shared in their investor report that Game Pass had nearly $5 billion in annual revenue. Unfortunately, since Xbox under Sharma is now pivoting back to consoles and exclusives, the focus is shifting away from reaching as many people as possible for the subscription service and back to targeting purely Xbox users. For Xbox specifically, the consoles were sold at a loss. In 2021, Xbox Business Development VP Lori Wright appeared as a third-party witness in the Epic versus Apple trial. I have a separate video on that if you want to catch up. Wright was asked the question of how much margin does Microsoft earn when selling Xbox consoles, and Wright answered with, "We don't. We sell the consoles at a loss." VGC also pointed out that Wright was asked if there had ever been a profit generated from an Xbox console sale, and she confirmed that this had never happened. This would explain a big portion of why Xbox decided to pivot to focus on software, streaming services, and subscriptions. The pivot back to focusing on consoles with Project Helix when component prices are skyrocketing is a little bit concerning, since Microsoft will take losses with each console sale unless those first-party games are strong enough to convince people to buy a console and stay within the Xbox ecosystem. Microsoft has always made more money through software, and it was no different with the Xbox. That's why Game Pass, as rocky as its beginning was, is so important to the Xbox market. It brought in a huge wave of new consumers to the Xbox ecosystem, particularly through the PC community. In February 2024, Microsoft Program Manager Kevin Kay had listed on his LinkedIn profile that Game Pass had grown to 35 million users. Game Rant estimated that by June 2025, the user base would rise to 38 million. Of course, we saw that in October 2025, Xbox had lost millions of subscribers after the price of Game Pass increased 50%. That price hike was then amended shortly after Sharma took her position as CEO, but it's too soon to tell if the numbers of subscribers has gone back up. With this renewed focus on consoles, Xbox may need to downsize even further to justify the losses it will take with selling next-gen consoles. We could even see first-party games be taken off Game Pass to bring additional software sales. Call of Duty Black Ops 7 did not sell as well as it did in previous years since it was included in Game Pass Day 1. Now the next Call of Duty title will not be releasing Day 1 on Game Pass, but rather a year later. The older fans of Xbox have wanted a return of exclusives and focus on consoles, but Xbox had been adjusting to the modern wave of new gamers and their desires and had become more inclusive to more audiences by adding a diverse mix of indie games and other games to Game Pass and extending those titles to other platforms. Xbox's direction has been very confusing and unclear the last few years, however, and it seems Sharma is attempting to redirect the company and publicly state what Xbox's intentions are, with a focus on Project Helix and exclusives. I personally don't feel that this is the right decision to make in this current gaming market, especially when people are already feeling hesitant to buy new $70 games, with unemployment rates rising and inflation increasing pricing for necessary goods like groceries and gas. The US unemployment rate alone was reported to be at 4.4% in February this year, with even less jobs being created. Will this be the right move for Xbox or gamers? We'll have to wait and see. Ultimately, I do hope these studios on the list for Xbox's potential cut list are able to go independent and maintain their company without being shuttered completely. It would be a huge loss for the gaming community to lose these studios. I'll be keeping an eye on this situation since it is still developing and ongoing, but thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.